Chapter 1. Introduction.
Video.
Chapter 1. Political.
Why geopolitical and military power differs between developed and developing countries. Total
In this
runtime,
video, we'll explore
approximately
the political,
34
economic,
minutes.
and geopolitical
Narration
crises,
pacing,
and
approximately
geopolitical crises.
120 words per minute.
These
Visual
govern many
cues
challenges,
optimized
economic
for storytelling,
governance, and
global
economic
footage, and
instability,
news-style layout intro.
and the
Zero
impact
to was world.
We will also discuss
Narration,
the role of
approx.
global powers like the
250 words.
powers like the
Why do
US,
some
Russia,
countries
European
dominate the
Union,
world
India,
stage,
Russia, in
and
China,
others remain
and
vulnerable to conflict and chaos?
Political
The answer is deeper than politics.
Political
It's rooted in economic, history, and global systems. Visuals montage of military parades,
are often frail.
U.S.
Governments
China,
in these regions
protests
are often
in
frail.
underdeveloped
struggling with
nations,
corruption,
global
civil
map
unrest,
with
weak
power
institutions.
zones. Cut
For
in
instance,
your channel
countries
logo
like
and
Venezuela,
video titles.
Somalia, and
Part
Afghanistan,
1.
Venezuela,
What is
Somalia,
geopolitical and military power?
due to weak
2
governance,
to 6.
instability,
Narration.
and external
480
conflict,
words.
and external
Geopolitical power isn't
Fragile
just about
political
territory. It's the
Fragile
ability
political
to influence
tensions,
international
civil
events,
wars, international
shape
diplomatic
global
pressures,
rules, and project
international
strength.
diplomatic
Visuals, split screen,
economic crises,
U.S.
two.
NATO versus
Economic
African
crises,
Union,
developing countries
UN
often
Security
experience
Council and
economic
session
downturns,
military
often high
training,
inflation rates,
naval
economic
movements,
downturns,
Hey,
diplomatic
good to see you.
handshakes, G7 versus African leaders. Part 2. Economic foundations of power, 6 to 11. Narration,
and
all
lack of
600 words.
All
No
moreover,
military
to their
becomes
struggles.
powerful
Debt,
without an
moreover,
economic engine
international
behind it.
trade wars,
The global
economic
north has
sanctions,
used
exacerbate
centuries
war
of
situations,
accumulated
often
wealth to maintain
exacerbate
dominance.
situations. Economic
Visuals,
dependence on raw materials,
charts,
economic
GDP and
debt,
military
foreign aid,
budgets,
challenges
factories,
with debt,
ports,
foreign aid
tech
policies,
hubs in
impact
developed
of global
countries,
subsection three,
contrasted with power
security
outages,
and
broken
humanitarian
tanks,
issues.
or unpaid
Security
troops
and
in
developing
poorer
nations
nations.
face a range.
Voiceover
Developing
highlight.
nations face
Without
a
economic
range
sustainability,
from terrorism,
military
to
might is
organized
temporary.
crime, from terrorism,
Part
countries like
3.
Nigeria,
Military
Syria,
capacity.
and countries like Nigeria are
Unequal
grappling
arsenal.
with
11
violent
to 16.
extremism, are grappling with
Narration.
violent extremism,
Approximately 600 words.
This not only leads to
Developed
loss of life.
nations
This
invest
not
in
only
cutting-edge
hinders development
warfare,
and causes
drones,
but also hinders
AI, and
development
cyber
and causes
warfare.
mass displacement.
Meanwhile, many
Terrorism
developing
and
countries
insecurity
rely
in
on
regions like
outdated
terrorism
systems
and
or
insurgency
second-hand
in
weapons.
humanitarian crisis
Visuals,
and refugee migration,
F-35
humanitarian
jets,
crises, the role of
drones,
refugee migration,
space command
the role of
centers,
military
African
intervention,
infantry in
the
dusty
role of
terrain,
global
Russian
powers,
and Chinese
global
arms,
powers like the
exports
USA,
border
global
patrol
powers
footage
like
from
the
Latin
USA,
America,
China, European
or
Union
Sahel
play a
Part 4,
significant and
colonial
shaping
and
the
Cold
political
War
and economic
legacy,
role in
16 to 21.
landscape of
Narration.
Whether through
600
foreign
words.
aid, military
Colonialism
intervention,
reshaped the
or trade
globe,
agreement
leaving
intervention, their
artificial
actions
borders,
often have
broken
far-reaching
institutions,
consequences
and
often have
economies
far-reaching
designed for
consequences for the
extraction,
stability
not
of these
growth.
regions. USA,
Visuals,
key points,
old colonial
influence
maps,
through aid,
Africa,
military
Asia,
presence and
Middle
economic
East,
sanctions,
independence movements and
economic
protests,
diplomatic pressure,
post-colonial
European
leaders
Union
speaking at
diplomatic
UN
pressure,
aerials of
trade and
cities with
development, focus on
infrastructure
military
gaps.
and energy-related
Part
focus
5.
on military
Global
and energy-related
systems that maintain
infrastructure
imbalance.
investment and
21 to 25-30.
investment and economic
Narration.
cooperation,
540 words.
and
Even
regional
today,
alliances,
global power
projects,
is structured to
regional
benefit the
economic
already
projects.
powerful.
In
The
this chapter,
IMF,
we've
UN,
outlined the
and
political
global
in this
trade
chapter,
rules
we've
often
outlined the
tilt
political
toward the global
crises
north.
developing countries. And security
Visuals,
crises.
IMF
The international
headquarters.
community must work
High
together.
chart
The
of voting
international
shares
community
at
must
World
work
Bank
together
footage
to
of
find our next
protests
chapter
over
dive
debt
deeper
or
into specific-
inflation,
in our next
arms
chapter,
trade
we'll examine how
conferences,
individual
and war
countries are
industry
grappling with
expos.
how individual
Checkmark
countries
Part
are grappling
6.
with powers
No
involved,
economic
and how the
balance,
global
no
powers
real
are
power.
involved.
Video. 2530
Why
to 2900
geopolitical and military power
sound wave
differs
narration
between developed and developing
480
countries.
words. When a
Total
country lacks
runtime,
economic
approximately
balance,
34
it becomes
minutes.
vulnerable. Narration
Politically,
pacing,
militarily,
approximately
and socially.
120
This
words per
fuels
minute.
coups,
Terrorism,
cues
and outside
optimized for
interference.
storytelling,
Global
global
South
footage,
Sudan
and
conflict
news-style
Boko
layout
Haram
intro.
footage.
Use
Use
caution.
caution. Was
Refugee camps.
narration. Foreign
Approx.
military presence in Mali,
250
Somalia,
words.
Syria. Why do some countries
Part 7.
dominate the world
Can the power
stage,
gap be closed?
and others remain
29 to
vulnerable to
32,
conflict
30.
and chaos? Narration. The answer is deeper than
480
politics.
words.
It's rooted in
Yes.
economics, the rise of
History,
regional
and
powers
global
shows
systems.
it's possible.
Visuals
But only
montage
if
of
there's
military
long-term
parades,
investment in
US,
education,
China,
tech,
protests
and
in
economic
underdeveloped
justice.
nations.
Visuals
Global map with
India's
power
Israel
zones.
space
Cut
launch.
in
Your
Turkey's
channel logo
Bayraktar
and
drones.
video title. Ethiopia's
Part
GERD
1.
and
What
regional
is
projects.
geopolitical
AU
and military
summits,
power?
BRICS meetings.
2 to 6.
South-South
Narration.
trade outrow. 480
words.
to 3400.
Geopolitical power isn't
Narration,
just about territory.
200 words.
It's the ability to influence international
begins
events,
with economic
shape
strength.
global rules,
If we
and
want
project
fairness
strength,
and real independence
visuals,
globally,
split screen,
the imbalance
US,
must
NATO
end.
versus African
Visuals
Union,
montage of
UN
rising
Security
powers.
Council in session,
Subtitles,
military training,
comment
naval
below.
movements,
What
diplomatic
country is the next
handshakes,
big power?
G7 versus
Your
African
channel
leaders.
branding,
Part
subscribe,
2
plus bell
Economic
animation.
Foundations of Power, 6 to 11. Narration, 600 words. No military becomes powerful without an economic engine behind it. The global north has used centuries of accumulated wealth to maintain dominance. Visuals, charts, GDP and military budgets, factories, ports, tech hubs in developed countries. Contrast it with power outages, broken tanks, or unpaid troops in poorer nations. Voiceover highlight: without economic sustainability, military might is temporary. Part 3 Military Capacity, Unequal Arsenal, 11 to 16. Narration, approximately 600 words. Developed nations invest in cutting-edge warfare, drones, AI, and cyber warfare. Meanwhile, many developing countries rely on outdated systems or second-hand weapons. Visuals, F-35 jets, drones, space command centers, African infantry in dusty terrain, Russian and Chinese arms, exports border patrol footage from Latin America, or Sahel Part 4, Colonial and Cold War Legacy, 16 to 21. Narration, 600 words. Colonialism reshaped the globe, leaving artificial borders, broken institutions, and economies designed for extraction, not growth. Visuals, old colonial maps, Africa, Asia, Middle East, independence movements and protests, post-colonial leaders speaking at UN aerials of cities with infrastructure gaps. Part 5 Global Systems That Maintain Imbalance, 21 to 2530. Narration, 540 words. Even today, global power is structured to benefit the already powerful. The IMF, UN, and global trade rules often tilt toward the global north. Visuals, IMF headquarters. Pie chart of voting shares at World Bank, footage of protests over debt or inflation, arms trade conferences, and war industry expos. Checkmark Part 6. No economic balance, no real power. 2530 to 2900. Sound wave narration, 480 words. When a country lacks economic balance, it becomes vulnerable, politically, militarily, and socially. This fuels coups, terrorism, and outside interference. Visual South Sudan conflict, Boko Haram footage. Use caution. Refugee camps. Foreign military presence in Mali, Somalia, Syria. Part 7 Can the Power Gap Be Closed? 29 to 3230. Narration, approximately 480 words. Yes, the rise of regional powers shows it's possible, but only if there's long-term investment in education, tech, and economic justice. Visuals, India's ISRO space launch, Turkey's Bayraktar drones, Ethiopia's GERD and regional projects, AU summits, BRICS meetings, South-South trade outrow, 3230 to 3400. Narration, 200 words. Geopolitical strength begins with economic strength. If we want fairness and real independence globally, the imbalance must end. Visuals montage of rising powers. Subtitles. Comment below. What country is the next big power? Your channel branding, subscribe, plus bell animation.
Chapter 1 Introduction to Global Political, Economic, and Geopolitical Crises in Developing Countries. Introduction. In this video, we'll explore the political, economic, and geopolitical crises in developing countries. These countries face many challenges: weak governance, economic instability, and security threats that impact both their people and the international community. We will also discuss the role of global powers like the USA, European Union, Russia, China, and India in influencing these crises. Subsection 1. Political instability in developing countries. Political instability is one of the key challenges facing developing countries. Governments in these regions are often frail, struggling with corruption, weak institutions, and civil unrest. For instance, countries like Venezuela, Somalia, and Afghanistan have faced severe political instability due to weak governance, conflict, and external interference. Key points: fragile political systems, civil wars and ethnic tensions, international diplomatic pressures. Subsection 2: economic crises and challenges. Developing countries often experience economic downturns, high inflation rates, and unemployment, which prevent growth and development. The legacy of colonialism, reliance on raw material exports, and lack of diversified economies all contribute to their struggles. Moreover, international debt, economic sanctions, and trade wars often exacerbate the situation. Key points: economic dependence on raw materials, challenges with debt and foreign aid, impact of global trade policies. Subsection 3: security and humanitarian issues. Developing nations face a range of security threats, from terrorism to organized crime. Countries like Nigeria, Syria, and Yemen are grappling with violent extremism, insurgencies, and insecurity. This not only leads to loss of life, but also hinders development and causes mass displacement. Key points: terrorism and insurgency in regions like the Middle East and Africa, humanitarian crises and refugee migrations, the role of military intervention and peacekeeping forces. Subsection 4: the role of global powers. Global powers like the USA, European Union, Russia, China, and India play a significant role in shaping the political and economic landscape of developing countries. Whether through foreign aid, military interventions, or trade agreements, their actions often have far-reaching consequences for the stability of these regions. Key points: USA. Influence through aid, military presence, and economic sanctions. European Union. Diplomatic pressure, trade, and development assistance. Russia. Focus on military and energy-related influence. China. Infrastructure investment and economic cooperation. India. Strategic alliances and regional economic projects. Conclusion. In this chapter, we've outlined the political, economic, and security crises in developing countries. The international community must work together to find solutions to these issues. In our next chapter, we'll dive deeper into specific case studies and examine how individual countries are grappling with these crises and how the global powers are involved.